Hey everybody, it's Professor Klein back in the Human Anatomy Lab at Ohio University. Today I want to bring you a video on the extraocular muscles. And here are the extraocular muscles. Here's a great eye model video. I got another video if you want to see the anatomy of the eye linked above. But we're talking about the extraocular muscles, which are the muscles that attach to the outside of the eyeball and move your eyeball. There's 6 of them total. I'm gonna list them out over here. We're gonna look at them. We're gonna talk about the nerve innervation, and we're also gonna talk about what actions each muscle produces. All right, first off, let's name these muscles. If we're looking at this eye, which would be a right eye, because over here is medial, over here is lateral, which means this is an anterior view of the right eye. You can also tell that because this is the lacrimal gland, which is on the lacrimal bone, nasal bone over here, maxilla bone. Lots of different things that can tell you that this is the medial side and this is the lateral side. With that being said, let's knock out the 4 rectus muscles of the eye. Rectus means straight. So I want you to look up here, and from a superior view, you can see that there are 1, 2, 3, deep down in there, and 4 straight muscles. So the one on the top would be superior. The one over here is the lateral rectus. The one deep down in there, let's get a side view for you here. That would be the inferior rectus. And then finally, that medial rectus is on this side over here. That's 4 of the 6. Then you've got 2 oblique muscles. You've got a superior oblique coming up and then taking an oblique turn, U-turn here, and then coming into the eyeball this direction. So this is the superior oblique. And we've also got an inferior oblique way down in here, also coming in at an oblique angle to the eyeball. All right, let's talk about the cranial nerves that innervate these 6 extraocular muscles. The mnemonic I give is that 3, 4, and 6 make your eyes do tricks. And by tricks, I'm talking about movements of the eyeball. Now 3, 4, 6 are oculomotor, trochlear, and abducens or abducent. Now what I like to teach is the exceptions first, and then what you're left with is the main group. So the first exception is the trochlear nerve, number 4 here. The trochlear nerve is going to innervate only the superior oblique, only the superior oblique. A great way to remember that is that there's a little piece of connective tissue in here. If you see this white band of connective tissue called the trochlea. So if the muscle that goes through the trochlea, that one's got to be innervated by the trochlear nerve. So that's the trochlear nerve innervating that superior oblique. Coming down to the side, the other exception, the lateral rectus, is innervated by the abducens nerve. Lateral rectus is the abducens nerve. The way to remember that is that the lateral rectus produces abduction of the eye. So the muscle that produces abduction of the eye is innervated by the abducens. Then all the other 4, superior rectus, medial rectus, inferior rectus, and inferior oblique, are the ocular motor nerve, cranial nerve number 3. All right, now you know the names, you know where they're at, and you know the nerve innervations. Now let's talk about the movements of these muscles. And with the movements of these muscles, I'm gonna remove my safety goggles here and use this eyeball. This is a lacrosse ball that I've put an eye onto to teach the different movements of the eye. There's 6 different movements. Now, if I hold this eyeball up to my eye here, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna move it into the different actions. Now, first up is elevation. If you look up, that is elevation of your eyeball. So this lacrosse eyeball, my right eye here, is in elevation. You can also depress your eyeball. It's currently in depression. So elevation and depression. Next up is adduction. If I turn the eyeball inward, looking inward, that's adduction. Now if I turn it outward, that's abduction. Now I've got it in abduction right now. Those are the 4 easy ones. Let me give you the 2 tough ones. The first tough one is what's called intorsion. Take a look at what I'm doing here. I just intorted my eyeball. Let me do that again. I'm gonna start neutral, and this is intorsion. Turning the eyeball medially or rotating it medially is intorsion. Back to neutral, and what I'm gonna do next is extorsion. You guessed it, we're going the other way. Extorsion is what I just did with the eyeball right there. I'm over here now, and now we're gonna talk about how the muscles move the eyeball. Now, any muscle is going to pull, not push, on whatever it's attached to. So muscles pull, like if you were in a tug of war and you pull, you're moving, hopefully that other team, in your direction. So the muscles are gonna pull. And in this case, I've drawn on a superior rectus, and I'm gonna use my finger to represent the superior rectus. And if I put my finger right here and I pull on the superior rectus, like I pull back on my finger, that's gonna elevate the eyeball. And that's one of the actions of the superior rectus. So remember, muscles pull. All right, you know the actions, you know the muscles, you know the nerves, but what exactly does each muscle do? For that, we gotta ask ourselves, what are the 3 starting positions for the eyeball? Because it depends on where the eyeball starts, or in what starting position, to what that muscle will do. Here are the 3 starting positions of the eyeball. It can be in a neutral position. But when I say neutral, I'm not talking about necessarily in line with the orbit of the eye, because the orbit of the eye actually points laterally. Notice how I put these pipe cleaners in here, and they are pointing in the direction in line with the orbit of the eye. That's laterally. And when our eyes are neutral, they are not pointed laterally in the left and right directions. So a neutral position looks more like this. This is a neutral position of the eyeball. They are slightly adducted, not fully, but slightly adducted in this position. So if that's neutral, then you can go fully abducted, all the way abducted as a second starting position, or fully adducted as a third starting position. So you have 1, 2, 3 different starting positions for the eyeball. All right, let me take off my glasses again, and I'm gonna show you the different actions of these muscles using this lacrosse ball and this tape. So what I've put on here are the two easiest ones in my opinion. They're all really tough, but these are probably the two easiest. And it's the medial rectus in green, and the lateral rectus in yellow. Now, from any starting position, if I pull on this medial rectus, see how I'm pulling back on the medial rectus, it will produce adduction. This is adduction when the eyeball goes in. Doesn't matter the position, the medial rectus is going to do that. If I come over here though, and I pull on the yellow one, the lateral rectus, it's going to abduct the eyeball. They're opposites of one another. And that's the medial and lateral rectus. All right, now let's talk about the superior rectus and the inferior rectus. How about black for superior rectus, red for inferior rectus? First off, notice how in a neutral eye position, even the superior rectus is not in line with the eyeball. You have to fully abduct the eye for that superior rectus to be in line. Now when I fully abduct and I pull, it's going to produce elevation. Notice how when I pull it from a fully abducted position, it will elevate. Whereas from a fully abducted position, the inferior rectus will depress. Inferior rectus will depress. See how I'm pulling on that muscle and it produces depression. They're opposite because they're on the opposite side of the eyeball. All right, follow along with me now, because now we're gonna go to the fully adducted position. When I come up here and pull on it from a fully adducted, it's tough to see. Let me see if I can do it this way. Fully adducted, it's going to intort the eyeball. So intort, there we go, got it now. Intort the eyeball. See how it's rotating inward when I pull from a fully adducted position? That's the superior rectus. How about the inferior rectus? Same thing, but now I'm gonna extort it. So same starting position, but now I'm going to extort the eyeball. So toughest one, the neutral position, add those actions together. Superior rectus is going to do some elevation and intorsion. The inferior rectus is going to do depression and extorsion. And both of them working together will produce a little bit of adduction. So the lists are popping up here right on your screen for what these muscles do in the different positions. All right, last two here are the superior oblique and the inferior oblique. You gotta kind of trust me a little bit on these actions if it doesn't seem so clear with the tape, because I've actually taped it at an angle. Remember, look at this picture right here. The superior oblique is at an angle and it goes through the trochlea on the medial wall of the orbit of the eye. Down underneath, the inferior oblique is coming in at an angle as well. So when I pull on this, I'm really pulling, what would you consider this way? So what these actions are, so I bring it up here, they are, if I fully adduct my eyeball and pull on the superior oblique, it's going to depress. Depress. So from a fully adducted position, the superior oblique will depress. What does that mean about the inferior oblique? It's going to elevate from that position. Take it all the way over to the abducted position and pull on these things, starting with the superior oblique, and it's going to produce intorsion. Some intorsion. See how that's intorting the eyeball? Whereas the inferior oblique would extort like that. And finally, they're both going to pull and abduct the eyeball from the starting position, the neutral position. Add those other two actions together like you can see popping up on your screen, and add in abduction, and that's the action from a neutral position for these muscles. And all right, that was the video on the extraocular muscles, as you can see here, of the eye, and hopefully you learned where they are, their names, the cranial nerves, and the movements. Leave a comment, like this video if it helped you, and share it, and turn on those notifications after you subscribe if you want more anatomy videos from myself, Professor Klein, in Ohio University. Thanks for watching.